early 1970s. Boxing gyms had their own rhythm then, a cadence shaped by leather on flesh, ropes creaking under leaning weight, and voices that carried confidence the way drums carry war. This one was no different. Sweat darkened the canvas, the air smelled of liniment and certainty, and at the center of that certainty stood Muhammad Ali, light on his feet, sharp in his eyes. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice for it to be heard. Ali had just finished a light sparring round. Light for him meant fast enough to confuse trained eyes, playful enough to look effortless. He laughed, danced back toward the ropes, and said it in passing, not as a challenge, not as a threat, but as a truth he had earned round by round. No one could dodge him. Not forever, not when he decided to turn it on. People smiled, some laughed, others nodded. The statement didn't require agreement. History had already signed off on it. That was when Bruce Lee stopped moving. Bruce hadn't come to challenge anyone. He wasn't even meant to be part of the conversation. He was visiting, observing, absorbing atmosphere the way he always did. Bruce believed gyms reveal more about fighting than books ever could. How people stand when they're tired, how they talk when they feel safe, how certainty announces itself before it's tested. He heard Ali's words and smiled, not skeptically, not dismissively, thoughtfully. Bruce had immense respect for Ali. He studied him obsessively, frame by frame, fascinated by how rhythm could become a weapon. To Bruce, Ali wasn't just a boxer. He was a master of timing disguised as a showman. But Bruce also believed that every truth is conditional, even the great ones. Bruce didn't interrupt. He waited for the noise to settle, for the moment to open. Then he spoke quietly, almost conversationally, as if continuing a thought Ali himself had started. He said that dodging punches depends on rules, distance, gloves, rhythm. Ali turned, curious now. He liked curiosity. He thrived on it. Bruce added something that shifted the air slightly. He said that reaction is always late. The body can only dodge what the mind has already accepted is coming. Ali raised an eyebrow, smiling. He asked Bruce what that meant. Bruce said if you wait for the punch, you're already behind. If you read intention, you move before the punch exists. The room leaned in, not tense, interested. Ali laughed, a bright, confident sound. He said he'd heard plenty of theories. He said speed beats prediction every time. He said 5 seconds was all it ever took for him to tag anyone in front of him. Bruce nodded. He said 5 seconds was enough to show the difference between reaction and interception. They didn't square up. That mattered. Bruce didn't ask Ali to spar. He asked him to throw one punch. Just one. Full speed. Pulled, of course. Ali agreed easily. This wasn't a challenge to his pride. It was a curiosity. Ali rolled his shoulders, light on his toes, hands loose, eyes alive. He was the embodiment of rhythm. Bruce stood still. That stillness unsettled some people. Stillness looks like surrender until it doesn't. Bruce wasn't bracing. He was listening. Ali feinted first, out of habit. Bruce didn't move. Ali smiled wider and committed. Bruce wasn't there. The punch cut air that had already decided to relocate. Bruce didn't dodge in the boxing sense. He didn't slip along the rope of rhythm Ali expected. He stepped earlier, off the line before the line existed. The movement was so small it almost looked accidental. Almost. Ali's glove passed where Bruce had been, and for a fraction of a second, Ali's balance followed the punch instead of leading it. Bruce stepped back. No contact. No counter. Just absence. The room went quiet. Ali blinked, then laughed again, but this time the laugh had changed. It wasn't dismissive, it was surprised. He said Bruce got lucky. Bruce nodded and said luck is what timing looks like when you don't see it coming. Ali asked him to do it again. Bruce said once doesn't explain anything. Patterns do. He agreed. Ali threw again. Faster this time, rhythm adjusted, intent sharper. Bruce moved earlier again, not faster, and once more wasn't where Ali expected him to be. There was no rush, no scramble, just the clean removal of target. 5 seconds passed. Ali stopped smiling. Not angry, not threatened, just focused in a way that stripped the showmanship away. Ali asked Bruce what he was watching. Bruce answered honestly. He said he watched the feet before the hands. He watched the breath before the shoulders. He watched the decision to attack before the attack itself. He said speed doesn't start in the fist, it starts in commitment. Ali nodded slowly. He understood that language. Great fighters always do. He said boxing is about rhythm. Bruce agreed. He said rhythm is readable. Ali countered that unpredictability breaks rhythm. Bruce said unpredictability is often just noise layered on habit. That landed. Ali leaned against the ropes, thoughtful now. He asked Bruce if he thought he could beat him. Bruce shook his head. He said that wasn't the question. He said in a boxing ring, with boxing rules, Ali was poetry. He said poetry doesn't need to prove itself by becoming prose. Ali laughed at that. He liked the metaphor. But he was listening. Bruce explained that dodging is not about moving faster than a punch. It's about not being where the punch is aimed before the aim finishes forming. He said once the punch exists, both people are late. The earlier you read intent, the less movement you need. Ali tested it once more, throwing a combination this time, light but fast. Bruce moved minimally, almost lazily, but always earlier. He didn't evade every line perfectly, but he was never fully committed to the wrong place. That mattered more than clean dodges. Ali stopped. 5 seconds had passed. Ali shook his head once, slowly, not in disbelief, but in recalibration. He said something that only a master would say. He said, "That ain't dodging, that's disappearing." Bruce smiled. He said disappearing is easier than running when you leave before you're expected to arrive. The room exhaled. What shocked everyone wasn't that Ali missed. Champions miss all the time. What shocked them was how little Bruce had done to make it happen. There was no contest of speed, no test of power. Just timing confronting certainty. Ali's confidence didn't collapse, it evolved. He asked Bruce to sit with him. They talked, not about fighting, but about rhythm, about how crowds affect timing, about how expectation becomes a trap if you believe it too fully. Bruce spoke about how the mind telegraphs before the body moves. Ali spoke about how fear sharpens rhythm when controlled. They were speaking the same language from opposite ends. Bruce said something then that stayed with Ali. He said the greatest fighters aren't hard to hit because they're fast. They're hard to hit because they leave early. Ali nodded, eyes distant, processing. The boast from earlier didn't return. Ali didn't retract it. He didn't need to. He had simply found its edge. 5 seconds didn't embarrass a champion. They revealed a deeper layer of mastery, and the room understood, quietly, that what they had witnessed wasn't a challenge answered, but a principle exposed. The shock didn't announce itself with noise. It settled into the muscles, into the pauses between breaths, into the way a champion recalculates without admitting he's doing so. Muhammad Ali felt it later that evening, while shadowboxing alone, when his feet kept wanting to leave a fraction earlier than usual. He hadn't decided to change anything. His body had already begun. That's how real lessons work. They bypass pride and arrive through sensation. Ali had always trusted rhythm. Rhythm was his camouflage and his blade. He used it to bait, to mesmerize, to turn opponents into collaborators in their own undoing. What Bruce had quietly exposed was not a flaw in rhythm, but a boundary. Rhythm assumes a listener. Interception assumes an observer. Rhythm asks the opponent to dance. Interception leaves the floor before the music begins. Ali didn't discard rhythm. He refined it. In the following weeks, his training partners noticed something subtle. Ali still danced, still floated, still talked, but there were moments, brief, almost imperceptible, when he stopped performing for the room and performed for himself. He would pause, not to rest, but to read. He'd let an opponent commit to an idea before punishing the commitment itself. The crowd loved the spectacle. The opponent felt the trap. Ali began speaking about evasion differently, less about speed, more about invitation. He said you don't dodge a punch, you invite it to miss. That language mattered. It placed agency earlier in the exchange. It aligned with what Bruce Lee had demonstrated. If you wait for a thing to exist, you're already negotiating from behind. This reframing had consequences for how Ali managed distance. He shortened some steps and lengthened others, not to confuse eyes but to confuse decisions. Fighters who tried to chase found themselves reaching. Fighters who waited found themselves guessing. Guessing is death at the elite level, not because guesses are wrong, but because they are late. Ali's coaches noticed fewer wasted feints. He feinted with purpose now, not for show. When he moved his shoulders, he meant something by it. When he leaned, it wasn't flourish, it was data. He let opponents read him, then punished the reading. The effect was uncanny. People said he looked calmer. Calm is dangerous when paired with speed. Bruce's idea that reaction is late had landed. Ali didn't fight reaction. He repositioned intention. The larger shift was philosophical. Ali had always been brilliant at turning certainty into comedy, making opponents chase ghosts he conjured with words and movement. What Bruce added was a respect for silence. Silence, Ali realized, forces the other man to speak with his body. And bodies under pressure tell the truth. Ali began building moments of quiet into exchanges. He would stop bouncing for a heartbeat, long enough for the opponent to decide, then leave. The crowd barely noticed. The opponent noticed everything. That heartbeat became Ali's metronome, setting a tempo only he could hear. The story of the gym encounter traveled, of course. It always does. Some told it as a missed punch, others as a mind game. A few inflated it into a sparring match that never happened. Ali didn't correct them. He never felt the need to protect his image from nuance. He understood that myths serve audiences, not practitioners. When asked about Bruce, Ali spoke with respect. He called him fast, smart, different. He didn't say Bruce could beat him. He didn't say he couldn't. He said they asked different questions of the body. That answer confused journalists. It satisfied fighters. Bruce, for his part, said little. He believed that the best compliments are behavioral. When someone moves differently after meeting you, the compliment has already been paid. He wasn't interested in proving that boxing had limits. He was interested in showing that limits have edges, and edges can be read. The concept of interception began appearing in conversations across gyms, not always by name, but by practice. Coaches started asking fighters to move on cues earlier than contact. Drills emphasized reading feet and breath instead of hands. Fighters learned to leave lines before punches matured. The language of dodging slowly expanded to include disappearing. Ali's own words helped spread it. He said speed without timing is noise. He said timing is when speed arrives early enough to matter. Those lines sounded like poetry, but they were instruction. Fighters listened. One of the most telling changes was how Ali managed exchanges near the ropes. Previously, he'd leaned back, teased punches into missing by inches, letting the crowd gasp. Now he sometimes stepped away before the lean was needed. It looked less dramatic. It worked more often. He preserved his back and punished overcommitment. Longevity improved when spectacle surrendered to precision. This shift didn't make Ali cautious. It made him selective. Selectivity is what separates champions from prodigies. Prodigies rely on gifts. Champions curate them. Bruce's philosophy underpinned that curation. He believed in subtracting until only what helps remains. He called it hacking away the unessential. In Ali's case, the unessential wasn't movement or flair, it was delay. Remove delay, and movement becomes surgical. The encounter also softened a false rivalry that fans love to imagine. People wanted a matchup. They wanted rules. They wanted a winner. Both men refused to feed that hunger. They understood that contests across domains often answer the wrong questions loudly. The right questions are quieter and more useful. Ali articulated this later in his own way. He said champions don't prove themselves by beating everyone. They prove themselves by understanding what they are best at. That understanding frees them from insecurity. Bruce had shown him that freedom by refusing to chase comparison. The gym where it happened changed too. Trainers there began emphasizing early reads. They slowed drills to speed understanding. They taught fighters to watch hips and breath instead of gloves. The effect was cumulative. Fighters left with fewer bruises and better outcomes. What made the lesson durable was humility on both sides. Bruce didn't seek validation. Ali didn't deny learning. That symmetry kept ego from poisoning the exchange. In rooms where ego rules, lessons die young. Here, they matured. Ali's later performances reflected this maturity. He still dazzled, still talked, still danced, but the dance had a deeper floor. He wasn't just outpacing opponents, he was outpositioning their decisions. Viewers felt the inevitability without knowing why. Commentators praised ring IQ, a phrase that often masks an inability to explain timing. Timing had been refined. Bruce would have smiled at that. He believed intelligence shows up as calm, calm shows up as choice, choice shows up as control. Control ends fights before they begin. The idea that dodging is not about speed but about departure became a quiet mantra among serious practitioners. Leave before you're expected to arrive. It sounds paradoxical. Bodies understand it immediately. Once understood, it's hard to unlearn. Ali's final word on the matter, when pressed years later, was telling. He said the fastest man isn't the one who moves quickest. It's the one who moves when it matters. That line, stripped of poetry, is interception. 5 seconds didn't challenge Ali's greatness. They refined it. They took an already brilliant system and widened its aperture, letting more information in earlier. That widening is the difference between brilliance and mastery. Brilliance dazzles. Mastery endures. Bruce Lee didn't dodge Ali's punch to make a point. He stepped aside to reveal one. Ali saw it. He kept it. And because he did, the lesson traveled through footwork, through silence, through the subtle way champions change without announcing it. That's why the room remembered the moment not as embarrassment, but as shock. Shock is what happens when a truth arrives without permission. It doesn't shout. It doesn't linger. It rearranges what comes next. 5 seconds were enough, not to win an argument, to move the beginning earlier. And in combat, in sport, in life, beginnings decide everything.